Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Astrology with Christine and Laura. Today, we're going to be doing house four. And so, Laura, I guess you can share on your screen our
Yes,
little
I'm ready here.
keywords. Okay. So, just to get oriented again a little bit, I'm thinking of the chart with the 12 houses being divided into quadrants. So, the first three houses we just completed, and those are the ones that are all about the me, the my body in relation to the space and the world around me, my body and self in relation to others with communication in mind. So those were the first three houses. So now we're moving into the second quadrant, and it expands that a little bit. So it becomes almost more in relation, I think, would you agree, to the emotional self kind of developing and the creative self and expression of self?
I think because it's jumping to the other side of the zodiac sign, it brings the other in our lives.
Yes.
So it brings with fourth house is of course the emotional self, but it's the emotional connection with the other.
Yes.
And this is like the first emotional house. So it talks about the emotional connection that we have in the early years of our lives
Mhm.
and the emotional connections that we have with ancestors, our society, basically where we're coming from. But it
Mhm.
definitely brings the emotional connection with the other and
Yeah.
we need from the others, how we feel safe, and what how we feel, all of that kind of stuff.
Mhm. Yes. So we'll be doing the fourth house today. And like Laura just said, it's family and home. So it's really the foundation of who you are. The first years, your first experiences and relationships, your first experiences with love, your first building of identity based off of what others, how others are informing that for you and how you're reacting to that with them. So I forget what we call the I feel, the motto kind of, or the phrase, the catchphrase that comes along with the fourth house is the I feel. So again, it's speaking to the emotional kind
And I
of
think it's
development.
also very like obvious, like very because then we have two more houses that we're gonna go through later, and those are more like deeper emotional things that we hide or um, unconscious things. But this is really what is out there, what we know, what comes to very clearly come to surface, how we feel about our mom, our family, our grandparents, this society that we are born into. It's the things that
Hmm.
maybe experiences that we remember from our childhood that really created wounds or that created strength in ourselves. So there are things that I think that we can tap into and in a way or another kind of have awareness of how we're feeling with the things related to fourth house. I think when we go to 8 and 12, those things are hidden. Those things we have to do therapy and a lot of inner work to comprehend what's there. But with the fourth house, things in the fourth house, we can recognize. And I think it's the basic understanding of our emotional self. I don't know what you think. 'Cause
Yeah, that's interesting. So to the first thought I had, I will come back to because it's a little longer. But the second one that I had was, I wonder if you know how we talk about in each of our charts, there'll be certain signs or certain houses that we relate to really well. Like someone will describe how it functions in your life, and you'll be like, yes, totally. And others, not so much. So Cancer and the fourth house for me is one of those houses where I'm kind of like, eh, I don't know. I don't know how much I connect with it, but I think that may inform my first thought that I had about this. And so for me, yes, I agree. And I see what you're saying with the eighth and the 12th house. Those are really amorphous houses and really confusing and deep and like foggy and weird houses. And
Therapy.
this one is like experiences, tangible experiences. But I think from the emotional development of a child, especially when I think of my own experience, because when you develop as a child, you define self based on what the world is doing and saying and speaking to you. It's really hard to have a full self identity as a child. And so for me as an adult, there has been so much healing that has come about. And you use the word awareness. It's an awareness all of a sudden that, oh my God, these truths that I was told about values, about who I am in relation to the rest of the family, I accepted those as truths as a child. But with awareness now and kind of stepping back and getting perspective, I'm able to kind of let some of those things go and define them for myself. And so I think the fourth house can be very concrete, but it can also be something that if you're not tapping into it, it can be ruling you and governing your reactions and how you perceive and how you act in the world in ways that you're not even aware of. And so I think there is a subconscious level to this as well. If you don't engage with it.
Well,
Um,
for me, the fourth house is, for example, let's bring the idea of Christmas. Why I celebrate Christmas? Because my family celebrated Christmas. So that is the fourth house. That's what my family was celebrating. So I'm keep with that tradition. Why I feel happy on that time of the year, or sad perhaps because I have good or sad memories of my childhood in Christmas with my family. So not necessarily is easy to see, but it is there, the information.
mhm,
And then I think when you find limitations that come from where you are inheriting from ancestors and family and childhood, then you have the eighth house to do all the therapy and change that. But where you collect the information, what is the references that you have to start doing the work? For me, it's the fourth house. It's like, oh, I'm feeling this way because that happened to me. I'm feeling loved when someone cooked for me because my mom used to cook for me. And that's when I was feeling loved. Or I'm feeling threatened when someone ignores me because that's what was happening in my family when I was a child.
mhm,
So the fourth house for me is that reference that I have to do work. It's like, this is me now. I feel I need to heal or adjust or transform this aspect of me. And what is triggering me? Oh, I go to the fourth house. This happened in my childhood. This is how my family was handling the situation. This is what my ancestors were telling me, or this is the society that I'm coming from. So that's why I'm doing things this way now.
mhm.
Do I have to accept it and continue this way all my life? No, I can, of course, change it. But in a way, I was formed or shaped in the fourth house, emotionally speaking.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. But I think there are some people that may not have that awareness that, oh, that is a pattern that happened in my family and now I'm repeating it, or I'm being triggered now as an adult because
Mhm.
these things happened when I was a child. And so I think we're both saying the same thing. It's just I just wanted to make the point that for some people, this house may not be as clear as maybe we see it, or
Well,
we can trace it back to the roots of that.
yeah, but everything that is related with emotional work is never obvious.
Mhm,
I just feel like because these are emotional houses, there are things that we cannot process through the mind. Um, and there are things that, pains that we're carrying and hurts and wounds that we don't know where they're coming from, uh,
mhm,
probably come from the fourth house,
mhm,
to then giving you an opportunity on the eighth house to transform and work with them, which is the second water house, to then go to the 12th house and transcend that, to heal and expand through that healing. So
mhm.
water houses are very complicated because uh, we cannot go and heal things with the mind. There is, the mind doesn't know how to read and
No,
understand.
rationalization doesn't help.
So if you feel comfortable with your emotions, if you are someone that know how to control and navigate emotions, fourth house might be comfortable for you. If if you are a little off with emotions and you work more with the mind or the body or your senses, and emotions come like I don't know, it's kind of an unknown territory, then the fourth house can be problematic and very hard to navigate.
Mhm, mhm. So that's the I feel. And you mentioned that this house governs family home, but also your relationship to the mother figure, or, we're trending away from saying mother and father. So maybe the
Oh, the
nurturer,
nurturer in the
the
family,
nurturer.
right?
Yeah. So the sign that rules this house is Cancer. The planet is the moon. It's a water element, which we've already mentioned, and it has the cardinal quality to it. And there you see the symbol. Um, so it's supposed to be Cancer the crab. So you have this idea of someone that carries their home with them, but also is it kind of can have a hard shell, is very protective. Um, when I think of the crabs, I think of them like pulling back within the home, that kind of thing. So that is really the domain that they really feel the most comfortable in, and that they would spend a lot of time and energy in. Yes. All right. So here we have areas of expression. So we have home and family, which I think we've already talked a lot about. Family business is interesting.
Well, it's what you get from your family, right? Your business, your grandparents' house that you inherit, although that goes also combined with inheritance from the eighth house, but it's what you get from the family, that those glasses from grandma that you wanted, or the recipe for the cookies, that reminds you of grandma, that kind of things that come with the family.
Mhm. Yeah. Would it also be though the idea of, three generations owning the same store and running the same
Exactly.
store?
Yeah. Or being a lawyer because your mother or your father were a lawyer.
Yes.
So in that case, you want to be a lawyer too and continue with that tradition.
Mhm. So we already talked about that this house represents your parent that was the nurturer. This is your roots, your ancestral roots, your family roots. Um, Emotions, we talked about, this is a house that really deals with your emotional self, with the foundations of who you are, of your life. Um, with culture and society, we've mentioned a little bit too.
Mhm.
So it's that where what culture that you're born into, and that kind of informs again your values, your belief systems, um, even like behaviors and
Traditions,
yeah,
the way you dress,
yeah, yeah.
what you
So,
eat, what you eat in summer or what is traditional in winter, how you celebrate holidays or all that kind of stuff that you repeat what your parents did and they repeat what their parents did. So it's something that we're continuing doing because of our ancestors.
mhm.
Also
But
with
it can even,
wounds, right? Also with a lot of emotional limitations or wounds that, oh, my mom went through this in life and my grandma went through this in life. And sometimes you see that repeating in you in this lifetime. So that's where the healing and having awareness of those situations are super helpful to start the healing, not just of you, but also of your ancestor too.
mhm. And for me, culture can be, it can be, it's this idea of it being a, uh, an identity that many people live under, right?
Mhm.
And so when you're talking about the wounds of your family, of your ancestors, it can also be the wounds that your culture carries. So, for instance, the Native American and the lands being stolen from them, or my ancestry is German. And so we have this wound and guilt and burden that we carry from World War II and the Holocaust. And so it's many people that are encapsulated in this one culture and this one wound that they respond to. It can also be what is important. So I was just in Spain. They take siestas and they take hours in the afternoon for downtime. You work for a few hours, you take some few hours off, you go back to work a few hours, and then in the evening you stroll and you go to cafes. And that's really part of their culture. That's what they find important. That's important, and that's how they base a good quality life. And so each culture defines that too. And based on where you're born, those are the belief systems that you are first raised in. And later on, you can choose differently, but it's very important, I think, culture and society of where you're born.
Yeah, I noticed something that I'm going to share now, and it's about in my family. My family were Italians, my grandparents and my grandparents that immigrated in World War II and to Uruguay. And my mom, when she's cooking, whatever is left over, even if it's like a little piece of carrot, she will not throw it out. She will put it in a Ziploc box and go to the fridge because she's going to use that for another meal. And that's how my grandma did. And I'm pretty sure that's what my grandma did.
Mhm.
um, and I found myself a lot of time doing that. Perhaps now in my life, I don't need to save a quarter of a carrot, but it's just this idea of the lack of abundance that my ancestors lived, and they carry those mentalities, those way of doing things, right? So when I notice, oh, I'm saving this quarter of a carrot because I might need it tomorrow, and then I notice all the things that I was starting saving in my refrigerator that were going bad because I would never use it, it's like, oh, okay, that's coming and is in me because of, and I was able to trace it back. And then by realizing that, I was able to heal. Now I understand that I have to do more healing regarding to abundance. But why? Because my family and my ancestors lived, um, they got to live a life where, it was hard to find food. And every little piece of food was sacred. It was like you have to save it for tomorrow, or you might not have food tomorrow. So
Mhm.
and then you are kind of wired. Then you are
Yeah.
born in that family, and that wire is in you. That wiring is in you. So of course you can work through that and do healing and release things, but not everything is an easy healing. So noticing all the things that you do because your parents did, because your grandparents did, is very helpful to bring awareness and start seeing what labels are you putting on yourself and why you live in life the way you're living it. I think
Mhm.
it gives you a lot of insight for healing and freedom, and deep transformation. So that way
Mhm.
you have awareness and you realize, or yeah, you decide what you want to keep and what is not helping you to live your best life.
Mhm. So ancestors, we just talked about caretaking, I think, and nurturing kind of are similar. And again, going back to the crab shell, it's that inner security of feeling safe and feeling protected.
Yeah,
Um,
I think it has to do a lot with the inner child.
mhm.
How we felt when we were children, when we were, very young, and how we connected with love at that time and with abundance, and how we feel cared, or we feel abundant, we felt that we had what we needed, or we felt lack of things that we needed, we felt loved, or we felt that we were being ignored. All the kind of things that happened and shaped our childhood, um, it's kind of what sets the playing field for how we grow up as an adult.
Mhm. Mhm. It's making me think about how, and this is maybe just me, but it's making me think about a lot of the spiritual work and the idea that you can heal you can heal your inner child and you can change. Well, I don't know if change is the right word, but you can heal the inner child so that the wounds that maybe you carry from your early years in life, um, they're still a part of you, but they don't affect you anymore. They're not handicapping you anymore. And so this house, I always think of childhood, it's in the past, and so it is what it is, right? But that inner child is part of you and it always stays there. So it's almost like each year that you live, there's a layer that you add on to that self. It's not that that doesn't exist anymore, the 30-year-old me. She's still a part of me. And so in my mind, I always think of childhood as done and over, and it is what it is. But I think this house offers a lot of that ability for you as an adult to now become the nurturer of self and become the caretaker of your own self at whatever age that is coming up that needs that nurturing and caretaking. And
I
that's,
I'm sorry, I see as a library, like noticing myself now. And when I see patterns that I'm repeating and I understand, okay, this is not helping me. This is me living in a limiting beliefs systems. Uh, I like to use fourth house or my childhood as a library and say, okay, what happened there? So it's not, and you know that I work that way.
yes, I do.
Okay, this is the problem that I'm having now. What created that problem? So jump
Yeah.
into the four houses, start analyzing things, remembering things, maybe calling your mom and your dad or an aunt and uncle and say, what happened there? Why you were doing things that way? You remember what happened in my childhood and how I was reacting and how what was I asking for at that time in my life. And so, and then you notice what is that you are repeating and bringing, and that is the opportunity to decide, am I keeping this, is helping me, or it's time for me to transform it, to adjust it, to release it, or to embrace it, whatever it is that I find in need, now in the present, to do in my life.
Mhm,
But that is where all the recorded things are, where
mhm,
I can go back and collect the information and understand why I'm bringing this to my present Laura.
mhm. Okay.
And now we can go sign by sign.
Yes.
All right. And I think we explained it in previous videos how we identify what zodiac sign is ruling each house. And it is by looking at the cusp of that house and see what zodiac sign is where you see the cusp of each house.
Mhm. Okay. So I'm going to put my glasses on so that I can read the screen.
Good.
Okay. Ah, much better. All right. So for Aries, if you have Aries ruling your fourth house, you're very passionate. Leadership becomes important. So again, think about family and home. So you become a leader in the home. But there also may be some conflict that you had in your home as a young child, or there's some kind of changes, like your home shifted a lot where you lived, or dynamics in your home, something, it was very changeable. Um, Fiery energy is what comes along with Aries a lot. And so it can be really exciting, but it also can be kind of off putting and unnerving, especially when you're young, and you don't understand why.
Yeah, I think it's like the perfect training for the warrior in all senses, or the leader in all senses, because right there at young age and from your home, you were kind of encouraged, through good times or maybe bad times or complicated situations, to be the warrior, to go first, to take walls down, to go for what is important for you, to protect yourself or to protect others. So that idea of leader and warrior is starting being developed at a very young age in your life.
Mhm. I wonder if independence may be another good word for this.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you have Taurus ruling your fourth house, you are deeply rooted in your family. You had a very stable home environment. There was lots of security, a very loving family, responsible. And I guess that could be both the whoever nurtured you and yourself as a child. You know, that's very grounded energy, that Taurus energy. So
Yeah, and maybe also we can add that idea of like things in your life are important. You know, it's like it's this idea of, oh, those glasses are grandma's glasses, so I want to have them. And it makes me feel good to have them. And traditions too. We get together on Sundays and we share a meal with the family, and it have to be a lot of food, and we all bring what we like to cook and we share. So all the idea of having, enjoying life, um, noticing the beautiful things in life and the beautiful things that you can sense and that you can taste and that you can have, that's something that were there when you were being raised up. So it's a part of who you are, becomes a part of who you are.
yeah, this might be the home with all the tchotchkes, you know, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you have Gemini ruling the fourth house, I'm just reading through these words. I think it's going to be interesting for me to wait a minute. All right. So chatty makes total sense to me. So it could be a house where, you know, lots of talking, discussions, but the detached may seem a little counter to a chatty household.
Well, Gemini is an air sign, so it's very mental. And it might be a little off in a house that is related to emotions, right? It's like probably will feel that idea of um, thinking your emotions instead of feeling your emotions, right?
Yeah.
Using your
So,
mind to understand what's happening there.
so it's this idea of they chat about all kinds of things, except maybe the deeper things about what's really going on inside of them.
Yeah, probably not how much of how you feeling. you
Yes,
know,
yes. It's about the world, what's going on in
what's
politics or
happening
in
in your life.
culture, or
Yeah,
yes,
what are you thinking about, but not how you feeling.
yes. So mutable is the idea that it changes and shifts a lot. And there may be an aspect that you may be learning a lot through your family, going to museums, or maybe being homeschooled, or having, you know, a parent that is really knowledgeable, or they love to talk about politics or world events or that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, I'm thinking Gemini is also about traveling short distances. So maybe bring this idea of moving or connecting with your neighbors, or instead of being really raised by parents, be the kind of raised by aunts and uncles and, more than one family at the same time going, or maybe connected to the neighbors, you know.
Mhm.
But it's not just the mom and dad creating that comfortable environment, secure. It's more like open and getting connection from more than one source.
Yeah, because Gemini is very social.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense. All right, so don't forget, Cancer rules the fourth house. So now, if you have Cancer on your chart also ruling the fourth house, all the things that we talked about are probably going to be important for you. So the very sensitive, having a very nurturing home environment, love being at home, spending time at home, maybe the opposite of Gemini. you you may not be spending a lot of time at the neighbor's house playing. Maybe you spent a lot of time at home.
With grandpa
um,
and grandpa,
yeah,
probably, and they're hugging you, or
yeah. So ancestry, um, their older generations, but it can be overbearing, right? I mean, it can be very suffocating in a way too, if you know you have a parent who's very strongly Cancer. And there is this idea, I keep coming back to the crab, and that hard shell. And on the one hand, the crab needs it because it's so soft on the inside, right? It's all squishy. And so it needs to protect itself. But on the other hand, it's also so impermeable that there's this, I keep getting this idea that there can be maybe some fear about, you know, stepping out into the world and the dangers of the outer world and that kind of thing too. And I think that plays into this overbearingness as well. So
Yeah,
there's an emotional aspect.
being hard to break free from your family too and start your own life.
Yes.
No, it's just a very tight and
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So Leo, it's almost a little opposite from that. So if you have Leo ruling your fourth house, your childhood in your home, your nurturing parent, maybe fun, playful, lots of creativity. It could be like a grand home. Um, don't forget that Leos like to be the center of focus. So here, if it's, so remember it's family home, but it also can be the nurturing parent. So it could be that you were the center of focus of the home, but it could also be that the nurturing parent had to be the center of focus of home. And another aspect to Leo is very magnanimous. So it's very giving and generous and, you know, open kind of energy as well.
We can maybe think that it was a home that was very social, like inviting friends and having activities and maybe being raised in the public eye too, you know, where people were seeing you. It's not all positive. It can be also the negative side of not having much privacy too, not having much time where you can feel secure with your close family, you know, maybe being more exposed to the outer world since you were a child.
Mhm. If you have Virgo ruling your fourth house, it was well organized, but it could also be chaotic. And I want to say like emotionally chaotic. Um, do you want to add anything to those two?
With Virgo, what I'm noticing is that you're really into making sure that everything is in perfect condition, in perfect order, in perfect shape, or you can go on the other extreme and negate all of that. So you do not connect with that. You do not want that. I'm seeing both ways. So for me, it's a child that, and perhaps maybe because your parents had everything, the house was so clean and so organized that can suffocate you because you were obligated to be always organized and always clean and always ready, that when you grow up you decide like, I don't care about that, I don't need that in my life, and you decide to go the opposite way.
Mhm. And it's Virgos are really interesting because they're to me it can be very intense. It's a to me there is a lot of tension, like I'm picturing like a bowstring like pulled really taut. And so if you manage that and you bring that tautness to your life, that's that perfectionism, the detail oriented, the, you know, getting everything just so kind of energy. And to me the chaotic part is the emotional aspect to it. So it either all kind of falls apart or that tension, it just breaks. And I think what that kind of is, and it saying it things, this really interesting bug just landed on my window as I'm talking about Virgo, and I'm wondering what the message is. But I think there's this like this point where it can just snap um, mentally too for Virgos, because they tend to anxiety and to OCD and to those things as well. And I'm wondering if that emotional response to having the home just so or all over the place, complete mess, and then swinging the pendulum for yourself in the other direction, to me that kind of speaks to that aspect of it as well. And so the perfectionism can lead to it also being, it could be a very critical home environment or a parent, the nurturing parent. But Virgos are also really about serving others and caring for others. So it could be also a home or a childhood that was focused very much on serving the community or serving the older generations in your family or in whatever aspect.
Yeah, it's doing that work for society and for others and for the ones in need. We can be those families that collect food for the ones in need, or that offer, volunteering, and that is a kind of rooted in the family, that idea of service, and you are raised that way, and it's something that then you decide to continue because it flows naturally to you, because that's what you saw when you were a child. um, and it, brings all the good memories of the family coming together to create something good for others.
The other thing that isn't mentioned here that I always associate Virgo with is health,
Mhm.
health and caring and nurturing for the body. So that may also be an aspect that is or was important in your home or in your early childhood.
Exercising, eating well.
Eating well. Mhm.
Yeah.
All right. So if you have Libra that rules the fourth house in your chart, your childhood or home was very peaceful. There was a lot of balanced energy there. It's artistic and kind of like a beautiful home that you lived in. It was very much about equality. And Libras are social in a different way from Gemini. Like Gemini, I see as like the butterflies. Virgos are a little less bouncy energy to me, but they also like the one-on-one relationships more than the big group kind of things. So maybe that's why it feels that way to me.
Yeah, with Libra in the fourth house, I just have this idea of I don't know, a family that likes the long conversations, really connecting. It's like coming back from school, and mom or dad asking you how was your day, really to connect with what's happening with you emotionally, mentally, making you a part of, your life. Um, and wanting to be a part of your life. It's really that idea of exchanging, interacting with all the members of that family. And that can be good if you have a lot of that energy on your sun sign and your ascendant, but also if you are more like a loner or someone that like to live in independent way. I don't know, having a sun in Aries, for example, right, where you are already coming into the world wanting to be you, and then having all that family that wants to know what's happening with you and also want you to know what's happening with them, that can be a little bit difficult to navigate too.
Mhm.
Because in a way, you have to also understand, and we're going to go through all this in other videos, that your soul is manifesting with specific characteristics. And some can be very aligned with your family and how you're raised, but others can have a little bit of friction. So with Libra, it's a lot about you interacting and sharing and balancing other people's energy in your home.
Mhm. Okay, Scorpio in the fourth house. This can be having a very transformative childhood, but there could also be manipulative energies or the nurturing parent being manipulative or controlling, a secretive home. But there's also a lot of power in Scorpio. So these aspects that we just mentioned could maybe empower you, or you could have the nurturing parent as someone who really empowers you to stand on your own and to make decisions on your own, really challenges you in ways to do those things. Um,
I can
it's a really
see,
interesting thing.
yeah, I can see also more like the survival within the family, like having experiences in childhood when you felt threatened too. So really, profound wounds that makes you have doubts about life, and put you through really harsh situations in life.
Mhm,
Scorpio is always very transformative and empowering, but in order to develop those skills, you have to go through very difficult times,
mhm,
and I think your own family or your society where you are from, where you were born or where you grew up, probably created situations when you felt threatened or insecure or controlled, or lack of freedom maybe.
Yeah, and coming back to that empowering, it's making me feel that maybe who you truly are in that environment, you were constantly being asked or given situations or experiences to kind of really be in that authenticity. Um, and that can feel very unsettling and very scary and very not just challenging, like I'm feeling like that idea of like feeling threatened. And I think I may be projecting a lot of myself onto this because it has been really scary for me to stand in authenticity a lot because I feel like it's not a safe place to be. So I'm wondering, as a child, if you constantly are feeling you are this person, but you're in an environment where that's being challenged or that's not an okay thing to do. And I'm wondering if that's the empowering aspect. Like you're constantly being asked by spirit, by universe, by the divine to step into that, maybe throughout a lifetime. But as a child, what is that like to be confronted with those situations?
And perhaps the way you find to survive is by hiding yourself, because
Yes.
you might have this energy of controlling, but from a hidden spot. Not being right there exposed, but maybe in the back room, manipulating and, making things go your way, but without you being seen.
Mhm,
That's an energy of Scorpio. So maybe you had experiences where you felt you needed to hide, and that was your safe place, and making you feel more comfortable when you are not in the front line. It's more like working from behind the scenes.
mhm. All right, Sagittarius in the fourth house, a very philosophical home and family environment and nurturing parent. Generosity, but also unrooted. And that unrooted, it may be because Sagittarius is one of the sign that likes long distance travel, likes exploration, likes new experiences, likes being put into situations that are new viewpoints and new ideas and new philosophies. And so maybe that's where that unrootedness comes from. Do you want to add anything to that?
No, no. But maybe also like parents that are from another culture, different nationalities, or maybe, a family that interacts with people from another culture too.
Mm-hmm,
So it gives you that wide idea of the world, and that we are all connected and all out there is reachable, and, creating that like expansion in the way you see the world.
mm-hmm. So Sagittarius can be judgmental as well. And I think this kind of ties into the idea that although Sagittarius likes new experiences and likes adventures, the sign also rules belief systems and organizations. And so those inherently come with judgmental kind of concepts and ways of engaging with the world, right?
Mhm.
Because I believe this way, and if you don't believe this way. So that judgmental aspect might come in as well. And there also they can tend to exaggerate. Um, so,
Hard to see things exactly the way they are. More like very philosophical, and I feel like sometimes blurry, because a little bit of exaggeration here, a little bit of philosophy there can distort what is really in front of you. So
mhm,
maybe as a child that can create a little bit of confusion, because as a child you need to define exactly where you are and what's happening and where is mom and where is dad and how they work and how they do things.
mhm,
With Sagittarius energy at home, everything is, it's also a mutable sign. So everything is changeable, everything is philosophical, everything is finding meaning to things. And while you're a child, you need to identify what is the thing, now what is the meaning of that thing. So
mhm.
I'm thinking a little bit of confusion growing up in that environment, maybe.
And it's also because it's so focused on big ideas that the like maybe daily routines and the little things that make life secure and safe, the routine of life may not be necessarily part of the priority for a Sagittarian.
You know what I'm thinking also? A lot of freedom. A lot of freedom. Like, okay, yeah, you go. Can I go to my friend's house? Yeah, you go, no problem. And call me when you get there. And instead of being those parents that want to know everything about you and where you go and drive you there, or a Sagittarius parents are more like, yeah, I trust you, just go and have fun.
Mhm, mhm. So I was just thinking that if the Sagittarius in your fourth house is referring to your parent, the nurturing parent, and they have the tendencies to like to travel and to like freedom, that can also be a little um, um, insecure, maybe for a child whose parent isn't always there, or who really isn't approachable in that way, like a Cancer parent would be, where you want the stability of having someone there all the time, having someone focused on you all the time. Whereas I think the Sagittarian nurturing parent probably is more focused on experiences for themselves and traveling and doing things like that than necessarily on the traditional parenting that we think of.
Yeah, I think it's important to see this, to explain this, is how you perceive your parents. It's not really how your parents are. As a child, how you perceive your home, how you perceive your
Mhm.
parents, because if you have a brother or a sister, they might have another planet ruling the fourth house. That means your brother or your sister saw your parents in a different way and
Yes.
perceive the
Yeah, it's
family in
about your
a different way.
experience.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so you as a child are
yeah.
seeing your mom or your dad like very adventurous and giving you a lot of freedom, but maybe it was not the reality that your brother or sister lived, right?
Mhm.
Because the natal chart is describing you, how you felt in your home and with your family when you were a child.
I have to say, as a parent myself, I think, and I don't know exactly why. It could be because I've shifted a lot, but I am seeing a very different parenting of my children in that way. And I think it's some of it serving who they are, right? Because it's always a response. A relationship isn't just feeding energy one way, it's always back and forth. Um, so it definitely is your perception of who that parent is, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't mean either that that's the only way that parent was, but it also can be truth that that's just the way my mom was,
Yeah,
or
it is
my
true for
nurturing
you.
parent was. Yeah,
It is true for
yeah,
you.
yeah. All right, Capricorn ruling the fourth house, the nurturing parent, the home responsibility comes up again, respectfulness, house rules is very clear. They could have a very disciplinarian or a disciplined household, and also very practical.
Yeah, I have the feeling of Capricorn families like where things are, why things happen that way. There is an organization, there is a plan, there is a procedure. There are rules. Like where you are and you know what's going to happen because everything is planned ahead. And I think it's very clear how to navigate. I'm not saying that is easy, but probably very clear and also very hard to change. That can be
Mhm,
a problem. If those are the rules, you might feel trapped having to live by those rules, but because it's not going to be a home where you can come with new ideas and everybody's going to welcome those ideas. It's going to be a home where we follow these rules because have been working for so long. This is who we are. Maybe that parent that says this is my home and while you're living here this is how you're going to do things.
mhm,
It's not that you can bring changes into the family. The family already is structured and it have its rules, and it's working for the ones that are creating that family. So
mhm. Yeah, so I'm definitely getting like the hierarchy too,
that
you
too,
know,
the
is
routine.
important. Mhm. Yeah. And so it's very like the word practical, also logical. So the emotional aspect may not be really highlighted in this. So your connection with your family members isn't necessarily going to be, these deeply emotional conversations that you're going to be having. Um, it may be solution solving kind of, conversations that you have. Um,
Yeah, but they can also create, I think, a very good structure. It can be, if you are someone as a soul, if you are someone manifesting here, wanting to live or be raised in a space where you know where things are, and from your younger age to have a goal and a direction in your life, that can be a perfect home for you, because
mhm,
you all like kind of always, you will always know where are things, and maybe you cannot have a mother or father that will come and hug you for hours, but you'll have a mother and father that is there for you when you need them, and they're
mhm,
there to jump and give you directions, and do homework with you and work hard with you and for you.
mhm. But I think you can say that for pretty much any sign in any, right? So the parent that you have, it's a purposeful choice.
Mhm. I just feel like sometimes Capricorn and Scorpio come with a little bit of, negative energy around, and I like to bring the other side too. It doesn't have to be negative. It can also be very supportive if that's what you are needing as a soul, being raised in that space, not
Mhm.
necessarily chaotic or sad or restrictive. It can be just what
Yeah.
you need, and is, having all that support. And I'm sure there will be parents that are there for you,
Mhm,
committed, very committed to raise you well.
mhm. Yeah. And I think we try and do that with all the signs is, even Scorpio, I think we are kind of rough on Scorpio, Scorpio in this one. Um, but sometimes it's they are what they are. And like with anything, you can find the light and the shadow in it. Um, okay. So should we move on? Aquarius?
Yeah.
Aquarius in the fourth house. Unusual, progressive parenting. Freedom is really big with them as well. Um, Expansive is an interesting word, and detached. So maybe you can speak to the expansive a little bit.
I think there are parents with new ideas. There are
Mhm,
parents that are open to what is out there. Parents that, a young kid come with, this is what's happening in the school, and even if it's, and I'm living a lot because I have a teenager now, so there are things that she's coming with, new things of doing, new ways of doing things, and it's not what I was raised, and sometimes I have to like, what, that's how we're doing things now. What this means, and I have to adjust. I think for a home with Aquarius energy, it's like, oh, that's amazing, teach me more, tell me more. It's like, always ready to see what is out there and
yeah.
incorporate that new, way of doing things or interpreting things into their lives.
Open-minded, I think, would be a
Open-minded,
good word.
yes.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that Aquarius energy, they can be detached too. And there's, I think that comes from being an Aquarius sun myself. I think that comes from mentally always being in that realm of seeing lots of um, opportunities, lots of different experiences, learning lots of new things, thinking in different ways. So it can be when you're on that level, it can be really hard to come back down and do that one-on-one stuff, and it can feel really strange and awkward. And
Well, Aquarius is another air sign, an
yes,
air sign,
mine.
an emotional house. So again, a little bit of friction there.
Mhm,
Because you try
mhm,
to navigate everything through the mind and not feeling the feeling, not feeling the emotion. It's more like trying to understand it. So
mhm,
the connections, instead of being emotional connections, will be more mental connections.
mhm. Exactly. All right, and then Pisces in the fourth house. There could be some confusion. Um, Pisces tend to be a little bit elusive, in a different way. So Aquarius is detached. Pisces is elusive, like you can't quite. figure out what's going on there.
All there.
Yeah.
And it's hard to, it's like one drop of water in the ocean.
Yeah.
It's hard to identify where you are and what's happening because it might be many things happening at the same time and nothing clear,
Hmm.
but very loving too. So,
Hmm.
and you learn to navigate, because Pisces is also water. So you kind of figure your way navigating your emotional self, but maybe not in one direction only.
Hmm.
Things might not be that clear. You might not know who is your nurturing parent there. It might be the two of them sometimes, or it might be more. Maybe your grandparents are jumping in and also being there, and you perhaps you don't know if you need to ask permission to do something. You don't know if should I ask permission to mom or dad or who is in charge here, or
Hmm.
it's just more like all there and anything
Hmm.
can happen. So. Of course,
Hmm.
if you have a lot of that energy in you, that might be very comfortable. If you are coming more with a, like earth energy in you, that might be a little bit confusing.
Hmm. Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. So spirituality may be really important as part of your childhood and in your home. But they're also artistic and creative souls, Pisces, and of course the sensitivity always comes up with Pisces. They're extremely sensitive.
Mhm.
So it could be that your home or your nurturing parent were overly sensitive or very sensitive or very empathic. Um,
There is one thing that we didn't put here, but Pisces is also related to trying to escape with some kind of addiction. So you also might have a parent that is absent or is dealing with addiction, so going through some kind of mental also problems, which brings a lot of pain and confusion, and maybe feeling that what you need is not there, or
mhm.
it's hard to reach, maybe not very obvious for you to figure how things are.
Yeah. Okay. So that was the fourth house. So in our next video, we'll be doing obviously the fifth house. And we really want to thank you. If you've watched all the way to the end of this video, we want to thank you as always for watching our videos, and stay tuned for the next one. And check out some of our others. I don't know, are we going to be putting little links up, or we can link down below in the description at least if you're interested in going back and reviewing the chart and figuring out where the cusp is. We can link some of those other videos. We've done all of the signs already as well, just an overview of them. So feel free to check those out. And
And
we'll
all the
see.
videos are also on our Facebook group. What was the name of the group? Soul
Oh,
Astrology with
astrology with Christine and Laura.
Laura. There you go.
Yes. So, and we're going to be trying some new videos as well, where we're going to be talking about the current transits of planets or full moons, new moons, and the energies associated with those. So keep your eye out for those videos as well. And we'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Everyone.